This title isn't right, is it? Because let's be honest, Alan Shearer was a million miles away from being boring. He was flat out electrifying. You don't score 422 goals by accident.
Alan Shearer's celebration is the worst I've ever seen.
Well, you've seen it 422 times.
You don't break records, carry entire football clubs on your back, and become the blueprint for an entire generation of strikers without being a machine. And Alan Shearer?
He's a machine.
Alan Shearer wasn't flashy, he wasn't blessed with blistering pace, he didn't weave through defenders like Thierry Henry or play with the artistry of a Berbatov. He was just inevitable. Right foot, left foot, bullet headers. If you gave him half a yard, the ball was in the back of the net. With little to no backlift, his shot power was ridiculous. When he hit a ball, it stayed hit. And he did things his way. No super teams, no glory hunting, no shortcuts. And though he didn't have a career, he built something far more meaningful, an unrivaled legacy that continues to inspire players and fans alike. But before we go there, let's take it back to before he became the record-breaking goal-scoring monster that he became, because Shearer's rise to the top was anything but easy. Football in Newcastle isn't just a sport, it is life. If you're born in that city, you're kicking a ball before you can even walk. Shearer was no different. As a kid, he was obsessed, playing football in the streets, in the schoolyard, in the back garden, anywhere and everywhere he could. By the time he was a teenager, he had a dream to play for Newcastle United, to wear the iconic number 9 shirt and become a legend. There was only one problem. Newcastle didn't fancy him. The scouts didn't see enough in him to offer him a place in their youth setup. So instead of starting his journey at his beloved boyhood club, he had to take the long road, 300 miles away, down to Southampton. A local talent scout, Jack Hickson, was a familiar face at football games across the northeast for decades. He presented Alan with the chance to join Southampton. So at just 14 years old, Shearer left everything behind. But that decision changed everything. Most 17-year-olds making their top flight debut just want to survive, but not Alan Shearer. He went out to thrive. On April 9th, 1988, on his Southampton debut against Arsenal, he not only got his first ever professional goal, he got his first 3, scoring a hat-trick against the Gunners. And just like that, a star was born. He also became a record breaker that day, becoming the youngest player ever in the first division to score a hat-trick, beating a record set by the legendary Jimmy Greaves, no less. And how did he celebrate this achievement? Well, he didn't really. Instead, his youth coach helped him keep his feet on the ground. The very next morning, Shearer was cleaning the first team's dirty kit. And that was Shearer for you. Head down, working hard, scoring goals. And it was this very mentality that would take him to the next level. Southampton's manager Ian Bramford was inundated with calls about his young superstar striker, with Manchester United leading the charge to secure Shearer's signature. Shearer netted 23 goals in his first full season, and the demand for his services could not have been any higher. But Shearer didn't end up at Old Trafford. Shearer instead landed at Blackburn Rovers, a club with ambition far bigger than its history. Funded by local millionaire Jack Walker, Blackburn weren't there just to make up the numbers. They were building a team capable of winning the Premier League within 4 years. Shearer was convinced by the project and joined for a record-breaking £3.6 million. At the time, it made him the most expensive player in British football, and he became the crown jewel of that Blackburn team. In his first season at Blackburn, he hit the ground running, scoring 16 goals in 21 games before a cruciate ligament injury brought his campaign to a halt. But he wasn't down for long. The following season, a fully fit Shearer went on a goal-scoring spree, bagging 31 goals. And then came the 94-95 season, the one where everything clicked. This was the year Shearer truly announced himself as the best 9 in the game. Blackburn Rovers weren't supposed to challenge Manchester United for the title, but with Shearer obliterating defenders, forming an unstoppable strike partnership with Chris Sutton, they did more than challenge. They won the title. Shearer scored 34 goals in 42 games, winning himself the Golden Boot, and he became a Premier League champions. But after they lifted the trophy, everything at Blackburn changed. The manager, Kenny Dalglish, left. The squad wasn't refreshed and Blackburn simply faded. Shearer, on the other hand, he just kept scoring. In the 95-96 season, he scored 31 goals, winning the Golden Boot for a second season in a row. At the Euros in 96, Shearer fired England to the semi-finals, scoring 5 goals and finishing as the tournament's top scorer. But his contributions weren't just goals. They were moments that made the nation believe in the dream, even if the fairy tale ultimately ended in heartbreak. Shearer's legacy with England is undeniable, and he has secured his place as one of the most iconic strikers in England history. After the Euros, though, Shearer faced the biggest decision of his footballing life. In the summer of 96, the biggest clubs in the world all wanted Alan Shearer. Barcelona made an approach, Juventus were lurking, but for Shearer the choice was between two clubs. On the one hand, there was Manchester United, the biggest club in the world, presenting an opportunity to play alongside legends, win domestic trophies and compete for European glory. And on the other hand, there was Newcastle United, his boyhood club, his childhood dream, and the chance to be the man to bring a Premier League trophy home to St James's Park. For most players, this wouldn't be a hard choice. They'd go where the trophies were all but guaranteed. But Shearer, he chose legacy. He chose home. And so, on July the 30th, 1996, Newcastle United paid £15 million for Alan Shearer, making him the most expensive player in the world. 15,000 fans showed up just to watch him sign. This was clearly bigger than just football. It was the moment that made an entire city believe that their dreams were within reach. And Alan Shearer felt like he might actually be able to pull this off. Alan Shearer played every single one of his 18 seasons at the top level of English football. No second-tier stints, just relentless top-flight football. And for a decade of those 18 years, he carried Newcastle United on his back. He started red hot and the goals just never stopped. The 95-96 season should have been the one. It should have been the season where the fairy tale came true. Newcastle were absolutely flying that year. With players like David Ginola, Peter Beardsley, Les Ferdinand and Philippe Albert, their chaotic style felt unstoppable. Fast forward to April and we get Kevin Keegan's famous rant.
Tell him now, if you're watching it, we're still fighting for this title and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
But despite Keegan's passion and Shearer's goals, Newcastle's decline continued. By the end of the season, Manchester United had pipped them to the title. It was a brutal and gutting end to a season that had promised so much. And sadly, it was the closest Shearer would ever come to winning a Premier League title with Newcastle. Things didn't really get any better after that. In the pre-season of the 97-98 campaign, in a seemingly meaningless friendly, disaster struck as Shearer suffered a severe ankle injury which sidelined him for the entire season. But Shearer returned in 98-99 and picked up where he left off as the team's top scorer. He led them to an FA Cup final, but despite his efforts, Newcastle were beaten 2-0 by Manchester United. This highlighted the gap between the two clubs, and for Shearer, the reality was setting in. The Magpies lacked the structure and the depth to compete at the highest level. And yet, he never left. But after a career that yielded just one major trophy, the question is, was it all worth it? In the 05-06 season, at age 35, with knees that had seen better days, Alan Shearer was still bagging goals for Newcastle United. He scored another 10 that season before it was all said and done. He broke Jackie Milburn's record to become Newcastle's all-time top goal scorer, and he finished with an incredible total of 260 Premier League goals. So Newcastle's greatest ever 9 walked away as the Premier League's greatest ever goal scorer. His last game for the club was on April the 17th, 2006. He played in his final Tyne-Wear derby away. His last Newcastle goal was a penalty in a 4-1 win over Sunderland. Just minutes after that goal though, a brutal challenge from Julio Arca caused an MCL strain in Shearer's left knee. and that was it. That sweet swing of his right foot to bury that last penalty, his last goal against the Magpies' biggest rival in front of the away end, it was beautifully poetic and felt destined to be. Since his retirement, Shearer hasn't just disappeared. He transitioned into punditry and he remains an iconic voice on Match of the Day. In 2021, he was inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame and he still remains the undisputed striking king of Newcastle United. Nearly 20 years later, his Premier League goal record remains untouchable. Harry Kane came closest but was still 2, maybe 3 20-plus goal seasons away. And despite Erling Haaland's exploits and his newest contract, I doubt he'll stay around long enough to break it. Players like Alan Shearer simply don't exist anymore. A home club legend with an unmatched ability to put the ball in the back of the net. For Shearer, being immortalised in the city that raised him, at the club that he loved, meant much, much more to him than any trophy ever could. No doubt he could have won loads with Manchester United, but to this day, he's much happier with the black and white striped path that he chose. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments what's your favourite Alan Shearer goal or moment, and do you think he would still bag goals in the Premier League today? Would he be among the top scorers? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you on the next one. Football bread.